Yeah, it purely is. And I've had the pleasure of sitting down many times with Robert Kiyosaki, author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yes.
And, he tells a story. We raised his hand in 8 years old and asked the teacher, when are we going to learn about money? And she says, no, we don't teach money in schools. And again, his real dad, his poor dad, was like head of education in Hawaii. So his whole family is PhD educated in the education. And they said, we don't teach money. He said, you're teaching me Spanish and chemistry and history. Why don't you teach me about money? And they're like, we don't teach this. Yes. And so the reason he wrote that book, and we were looking at the cash flow game, is because he was trying to find a way to educate people about money.
Yes.
He did it through storytelling, interesting enough, but we need to do it through definitely the gamification. And
more broadly, more broad.
We have to get people there. And I look at it because I spent my early education not learning about money, and then later I forced myself to learn about money in business school and then on Wall Street. And I could literally see how we're taught like you're not smart enough to understand money.
Oh, yes.
Just like we were taught you're not smart enough to understand your health,
yes.
or you're not smart enough to understand all these other things. And we're all starting to wake up to the fact that, wait a second, when we outsource our health or outsource our money to other people, it can, and oftentimes in a matter of time, will be abused. And
it will be abused because they have power over you in matters, and you don't have a way. It's another form of self-custody, or another form of sort of, do I own sort of my own narrative in this sense, right? This is what happened to my mother. She was an artist, she was a musician. And basically intermediaries would say, you worry about being an artist and be creative because that's what you're good at. I'll worry about the money, okay? But unfortunately, they would abuse it. And to the point where she would have no idea what happened almost, right? I mean, and because it happened to every artist, suddenly it became the norm. It was okay to underpay musicians and artists, which is frankly to the detriment of society, right? Because you don't have that much diversity and so on. So I think this is a really, really important part. And I think it is a failing in the system. But I think part of the failing in the system has not just to do with control, but also has to do with the fact that in certain cultures, talking about money was considered uncool. It was considered something rude, right? And I remember, because I grew up in Europe, I grew up in Austria, in the 70s and 80s, these capitalist Americans would come visit Europe, with their cash, and they would be, considered brash, and the expression to them was like the nouveau riche, right? And many, many people in Europe would look down on them and just, they wouldn't necessarily say it to their face, but they were like, oh, these Americans, whatever. But yet they had the money and the power, and they came to study and learn, right? But effectively, it was this sort of looking down that has held back society in these places because of this sort of objection to value in money, which is ironic because at the end of the day, you get paid this for your better standards of living or whatever it is, what it is. By the way, this is the worrying narrative that's happening in America, right? Because in America, people used to say, okay, capitalism is good, we have to work hard to get there. And while there is definitely inequity that needs to be solved, what I think is far more dangerous and insidious is this idea that capitalism actually isn't a force for good. Because if we don't have capitalism, then we won't have innovation, and we won't have the incentive mechanisms to push the world forward in a positive way.
And that is a fact. Fast forward 20 years, if Animoca does its job, what does the world look like?
Well, I mean, the first big hope for me is that there will be a different level of distribution of income and value because everyone becomes a stakeholder, right? So that means that we get to own a piece in the networks that we participate and that we help grow. Not all of us will necessarily succeed in the same way, but just imagine, mental model, obviously that's not the case today. Every person who uses Facebook has a stake in Facebook. They would share in its value. That to me is much more effective than UBI, where someone has to pay someone the same value. I understand the ideas of UBI and I appreciate its noble intentions, but I don't think that's how humans work, right? That's sort of the idea of, ultra-socialism, perhaps even veering slightly towards a communist framework, where everyone at least gets, sort of the same, regardless of what you do. Whereas here, it's still based on your effort. If you could create good data, or if you create sort of good contributions, you are generally rewarded more, but you still get to participate in the distribution of that value. Because I think what's unfair isn't the fact that there's inequity. I think inequity is necessary in some ways for economic systems to flourish because you need to have ambitions and drivers. But what I actually think has failed is shareholder capitalism as a concentration of wealth, because you can't participate. If you're an employee or if you're a participant in a network, you have no way in participating in the growth of that. Who has participated? Investors and founders of the company, possibly employees. Everyone else doesn't participate, right? Even though they helped grow that network. You made a viral video, and Instagram or TikTok, gained like millions of new users because of it. That didn't happen because you don't own a piece of that, right? You don't own a sort of part of that network effect, right? So to me, when that changes, all of us will then have sort of income that's derived from it, freeing us up. So I feel like it may have maybe a similar effect of what we want UBI to do, but in relative terms, and because we're refining our data and experiences as we feed in the systems. Because at the end of the day, the AI grows from our human experiences. It doesn't grow from AI experiences, right? The AI still serves our purposes. We are delighted in human ways about what AI makes. The AI doesn't sort of say, wow, this is great art, or that tastes really good, or I feel sadness for this.
Not yet.
Right? Well, I mean, even then, it's an artificial construction of this one, where in comparison to what an AI does, which is the one a human does, which is where that source of empathy and feeling and emotions truly comes from. Right? So I think at the end of the day, that's what's going to change. And also, in hopefully sooner than 20 years, we're going to have billions of people be financially educated, meaning we have a base level of financial literacy. So there's going to be a few things that happens. One, there's going to be less abuses, because when you have broad information symmetry, then the level of abuse becomes a social protection level. Right now, you have to have regulators come in to basically enforce it, because why do you have to enforce it? Because there's a gap, right? But for instance, other concepts like you shall not steal, or other concepts about sort of fraud, or even things that you would sort of spread misinformation to some degree, the paradigm, right? So you can't really get away with that type of stuff, because socially we all understand that this is wrong, right? But when it comes to financial exploitation, we don't know. Even if it is wrong, we don't know it because we don't understand it. So that's the thing that I think happens. And it requires a generation of children as well to come in through the education system, which we hope things like Open Campus and TinyTap can also help contribute to. So maybe in 10 years' time, hopefully, we'll have such a broad knowledge of information sort of symmetry that we will no longer have these abuses. Credit card companies can no longer charge you 20% interest, which still, again, how is that even possible in this world, right? And why do people even sign up for that, right? And then separately, of course, I think it changes the liquidity profile of the market. When you see what happened with Web 1, information becoming so broadly available, what did it do? It created and spawned much bigger industries, much bigger opportunities, because everyone had more based knowledge and therefore more ability to express their creative individuation and ideas because they had more information, right? The more you know, the more you can create. And this to me means, in the financial context, much deeper liquidity, much broader sort of levels of transaction that become much bigger in the world, meaning that the digital plane will, as a result, become this, trillions and trillions of dollars market size, as opposed to the billions that it is today.
Right, and then continue to grow and
exactly.
grow and grow and grow.
Yeah.
So Jim Rickards has just recorded a video that's not available to anyone in the public, and he's going to be talking about how this upcoming recession is going to be fast, it's going to be bloody, it's going to be nasty. But at the same time, he's going to show you how you can position yourself to profit from all of this chaos. Now, we've made this video only available to our viewers. Go to londonreal.tv/Jim. Watch that immediately. I can't say enough good things about Jim Rickards. He understands the global economic system better than any guest I've ever had on London Real. His predictions are almost uncannily true, and you can learn how to profit from his vision, from his expertise, and his understanding of economics. So go to londonreal.tv/Jim or click the link below. It's an excellent, excellent look on what's going to happen in the future and how you can position yourself to profit from that. Jim is one of the best in the business, one of my favorite guests on London Real, and he's very, very good at predicting the future and showing us all to profit from it. So click the link, and I hope you enjoy. Hey, do you want to profit from crypto? Then join my DeFi Academy. The Crypto DeFi Academy will help you create generational wealth. But don't take my word for it. Listen to my students.
When I first got into crypto, I remember thinking to myself, I need to learn more. Brian Rose, learning crypto, learning DeFi, gotta do it.
I am so grateful that I jumped in and did this. I had to break through some limiting beliefs that I can do this, that I can afford this, that I can be in this.
It challenges the things that are deeply rooted within us. Joining DeFi Academy has been one of the best decisions I have made on my blockchain journey.
This course was a life changer, a game changer, a huge eye-opener, coming from knowing practically nothing at the speed of the learning over 4 weeks was just fantastic.
The information you provided in this class was invaluable.
I feel far more confident in my next steps.
You took complex concepts and made them easier to understand.
What's different than so many other ones is it just doesn't tell you what to do. It actually makes you do it.
This is for people who are serious about becoming traders. This is the way it should be done.
I realized from this learning experience again that it is not about what you learn, but about who you learn it from.
The energy was insane. I've never experienced such incredible energy on a live call. Brian Rose, you are a legend, my friend.
It's the only thing in the market where you can get all information and learn everything what you need to know.
Everything is so clear and so well done, and I'm just forever grateful for this program.
It made me feel so much more confident about crypto than I did before.
I did not anticipate how passionate I was going to become about it.
It's also been like a big learning experience for me, not just in the crypto space, but just in overall balance of life.
What I've learned is, how to take ownership, of my life in a way that I really hadn't before.
Yeah, you can't put a price on that, really.
I would recommend it to anybody, top notch.
Excellence does not come cheap. So if you want excellence, you gotta pay for it, but it's so worth it.
Pull the trigger. That's what this course is about.
You're not going to regret it, really. It's amazing.
Thank you, Brian and team.
So what are you waiting for? Crypto is happening now. Click the link below, submit your application, and let me mentor you on how to create generational wealth and build the decentralized financial infrastructure of the future.